They said I was the problem, the unstable one, the one who always ruined everything. My brother was marrying the love of his life on a yacht worth more than most people's houses. My father looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You're not coming. Not this time. Not ever again." I smiled, because I already knew the secret that would burn his perfect family to the ground. This is the story of how one invitation denied became the night everything finally came out. My name is not important. What matters is the family I was born into and the quiet war that had been fought inside it for 27 years. We were the kind of family that looked perfect from the outside. My father, Richard Hale, built a logistics company from nothing. By the time I was 10, we lived in a house with a circular driveway and a housekeeper who never made eye contact. My older brother, Connor, was the golden child, tall, charming, athletic, the one who never needed to raise his voice to be heard. I was the second son, the quieter one, the one who asked too many questions and noticed things no one wanted noticed. Connor got the yacht for his 20th birthday, a 52-foot Sea Ray that sat gleaming in the marina like a trophy. He called it Legacy. My father had paid for half of it in cash and financed the rest through one of his shell companies. I found that out later. At the time, I just stood on the dock in a button-down shirt that didn't fit right and watched Connor pose for photos with his arm around our father's shoulders while the rest of us were told to stay out of the frame. The engagement party was supposed to be the crowning moment. Connor had proposed to Elena on that same yacht 6 months earlier. She said yes under string lights and champagne. The party was going to be bigger. Private dock, catered dinner, 50 carefully selected guests, black tie optional. My father had spent weeks planning the guest list himself. When the final version went out, my name was not on it. I found out the way I always found out things in that family, by accident. My mother left her laptop open on the kitchen island. The email was still open. Subject line, final guest list, Connor and Elena engagement. I scrolled. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Business associates. Even the neighbor's adult daughter who once babysat us. My name was missing. I waited until dinner. My father sat at the head of the table the way he always did, cutting his steak into precise squares. I asked, calmly, why I wasn't invited. He didn't look up. Because this is Connor's night, and you have a habit of making nights about yourself. I asked what that meant. He finally met my eyes. You know exactly what it means. The last 3 family events you attended ended with someone crying or walking out. We're not doing that again. Not on the yacht. Not with Elena's parents there. Not with the press photographer we've hired. You're staying home. My mother said nothing. She never did when it mattered. Connor looked at his plate. Elena, who had been invited to dinner that night, stared at the salt shaker like it held answers. I didn't argue. I just nodded. Understood. That night I sat in my childhood bedroom, still kept for when you visit, even though I lived 20 minutes away, and opened the encrypted folder on my laptop, the one I had been building for 4 years. It started with a bank statement I wasn't supposed to see, then a contract, then a series of emails forwarded to the wrong address, then a voicemail left on a landline that no one used anymore. Piece by piece, I had assembled the truth about how my father's empire actually worked and what it had cost the rest of us. The secret was simple and ugly. When I was 12, my mother had a brief affair with a man who worked in my father's company. It lasted 3 months. She ended it. My father found out 2 years later through a private investigator he hired during a period of paranoia about competitors. He did not leave her. He did not scream. He simply began transferring assets into trusts that excluded her, and he began treating me, the child who looked most like her, as a permanent reminder of the betrayal. The yacht was purchased with money that should have been marital property. The company shares Connor received at 21 were shares that had been quietly diverted from a joint account. The engagement ring Elena wore had been paid for with funds that originated in an offshore account my mother never knew existed. And the reason I was banned from the party was not because I made things about myself. It was because my father was terrified that if I spent enough time around Elena's family, people with real money and real lawyers, I might finally say the thing I had been holding. I had proof, not just of the affair, of the financial restructuring that followed, of the forged signatures on 2 trust amendments, of the way my father had used Connor's name on paperwork to shield assets while keeping the real control, of the quiet payments made to the private investigator for years afterward, long after the affair was over, just to make sure my mother never stepped out of line again. I waited until the night of the party. The yacht was lit up like a floating stage. String lights, soft jazz, guests in linen and silk moving across the deck. I parked 2 blocks away and walked. Security at the dock was minimal, just a man with a clipboard who recognized me and hesitated. I told him I was dropping something getting off for Connor. He let me pass. I found my brother near the stern, laughing with Elena's father. I waited until the conversation paused, then stepped forward. Connor, I need a minute. He looked at me the way he always did when he was about to manage a situation. You're not supposed to be here. I know. Dad made that clear. I just need 5 minutes. After that I'll leave and you never have to see me again if that's what you want. Elena's father excused himself. Connor's jaw tightened, but he walked with me to the quieter side of the yacht, near the railing where the water slapped against the hull. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I told him everything. The affair, the investigation, the trusts, the way the yacht and the company shares and even the engagement fund had been moved around like pieces on a board so that if my mother ever left, she would leave with almost nothing. I showed him the documents on my phone, scans of the original trust language, the amended versions with the forged signature that looked almost like hers, but wasn't, the wire transfers timed to the week after the investigator's final report. Connor read in silence. His face went through several shades of pale. You're lying, he said at last. It was automatic. The reflex of a son who had spent his whole life believing the version of the story that made him the chosen one. I'm not. And if you don't believe me, ask Dad. Ask him why the private investigator is still on retainer. Ask him why Mom's name was removed from the primary residence title 3 years ago. Ask him why you're listed as the sole beneficiary on accounts that used to be joint. He stared at the water for a long time. Music drifted from the other end of the yacht. Someone laughed. A cork popped. Why now? He asked. Because he banned me from your engagement. Because he decided I was the threat. Because I was tired of being the only one who knew and the only one who stayed quiet. Connor didn't speak for another minute. Then he said, stay here. He walked away. I watched him move through the crowd until he reached our father, who was holding court near the bar with 2 of his oldest business partners. Connor said something low. My father's face changed. The smile stayed, but the eyes went cold. He excused himself. The 2 of them disappeared into the main cabin. I waited on the deck. Guests continued to arrive. Elena found me and asked if everything was all right. I told her it would be. She didn't look convinced. 10 minutes later, my father came out alone. He walked straight to me. The music still played. No one else seemed to notice the shift in the air. You think this makes you clever, he said, voice low enough that only I could hear. You think exposing old wounds makes you righteous. All it does is prove why I didn't want you here. You poison everything you touch. I met his eyes. Then call the police. Or the lawyers. Or whoever you need. The documents are already in an email draft addressed to Mom, to Connor, to Elena's parents, and to the family attorney. If I don't cancel the send by midnight, it goes. And if anything happens to me between now and then, it goes automatically. His face did something I had never seen before. The controlled anger cracked, just for a second, into something closer to fear. You're bluffing. I'm not. And you know I'm not, because you've spent 20 years making sure I was the one person in this family who never got the benefit of the doubt. So here we are. Connor came out of the cabin. His eyes were red. He looked at our father, then at me, then back at our father. Is it true? He asked. My father didn't answer. That was answer enough. The rest of the night did not explode the way people expect these things to explode. There was no screaming match on the deck. No thrown glasses. No dramatic exit in front of the guests. My father simply told the captain they would be docking early. The party continued for another hour in a strained, brittle way. People sensed something was wrong, but no one asked. Elena's parents looked concerned. My mother, who had been seated at a table near the bow, never left her chair. She just watched the 3 of us with an expression I could not read. I left before the yacht returned to the dock. I walked back to my car and sat in the dark for a long time. The email did not go out that night. Connor asked me to wait. He said he needed time to talk to our mother alone, without our father controlling the conversation. I agreed. For 3 days, nothing happened. On the 4th day, my mother called me. Her voice was steady in a way it had not been in years. I need to see the documents, she said. I brought them to her. We sat at her kitchen table, the same table where so many silent dinners had taken place, and I walked her through every page. She did not cry. She did not apologize for the affair or for the years of looking away. She simply read, and when she finished, she closed the folder and said, I want a divorce. And I want every dollar that was moved without my knowledge returned. The legal process that followed was slow and ugly and entirely private. My father fought. He hired expensive attorneys. He tried to paint me as unstable, as vengeful, as the product of a bitter imagination. The documents held. The forensic accountant my mother's lawyer brought and confirmed the pattern of transfers. The private investigator's invoices were still on file with the company that had employed him. The signature analysis on the trust amendments came back inconclusive enough that the judge ordered further discovery. In the end, my father settled. The house was sold. The trusts were rewritten. My mother received a substantial portion of the marital estate. Connor kept the yacht, but only after signing papers that made clear it had been purchased with funds that were never solely his. I was not invited to the wedding. That was fine. By then I had stopped needing invitations from people who only wanted me present when I was silent. Connor and I speak now carefully. He is still with Elena. They live in a different city. He told me once, over a long phone call, that the night on the yacht was the first time he had ever seen our father look afraid. He said it changed something in him. I told him I hoped that was true. My mother lives alone in a smaller house with a garden she tends herself. She does not talk about the past much. When she does, it is without the old carefulness. The fear is gone. My father remarried within 18 months. A woman closer to Connor's age. They live in a different state. I have not spoken to him since the settlement was signed. I do not plan to. People ask me sometimes if I regret it. If revealing the secret was worth the cost. The truth is simpler than they expect. I did not do it for revenge. I did not do it to destroy the family. I did it because I was tired of being the only person who had to carry the weight of what everyone else refused to see. And because the day my father told me I was not welcome at my brother's engagement, he made one final calculation, that I would stay quiet one more time. He was wrong. The secret is out. The money has been moved back to where it belonged. The yacht still floats in some marina, still called Legacy, though the name means something different now. And I no longer wait for an invitation that was never going to come. That is the story. Not the version my father preferred. Not the version the family photos suggested. Just the one that finally got told. If this story stayed with you, you're not alone. Families hide things for decades. Some secrets only surface when the cost of silence finally becomes higher than the cost of truth. This channel is called Transformation History because every story we tell is about the moment something irreversible changes, when the official version collapses and a truer one takes its place. If you've lived through something similar, or if this narrative made you look at your own family differently, leave it in the comments. We read them. And if you want more stories like this, quiet ruptures, long-buried truths, the nights when everything finally comes into the open, subscribe and turn on notifications. The next one is already in the works. Until then, remember, the people who ban you from the celebration are often the ones most afraid of what you'll say when you finally speak. Thank you for watching.